Messed up. What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 2 of my piano progress tutorial vlog not lesson series. We're back here on day 30 now. It's been 30 days that I've been playing the piano, about 10 days since the last video that you guys saw, and I have been practicing a lot, about 2 hours a day to be exact. Someone asked me that in the last video. So I'm going to attempt to show you guys a little bit of what I've been working on. I think it's too much for one video, so I'm actually going to split this up into 2 videos. In this video I'm going to show you the scale and the arpeggio exercise I've been working on. You guys just kind of saw a preview of that. And then in the next video, which I guess will be like episode 2, part 2, I'll show you guys some of the chord stuff that I'm working on. Alright, let's get right to it. Scale wise, I left you guys off in the last video talking about this C major double octave scale that I was working on, but maybe not 100% comfortable with in terms of, you know, being really able to play it fluidly up and down at a good tempo. But I practiced that quite a bit, and here's what I got. A little bit sloppy, but you guys get the idea. That's coming along quite well. I feel pretty comfortable with that, and I could practice that one scale for a year and be awesome at it. But there's other stuff that I want to do besides that. So at a certain point, you got to say, okay, good enough. Let's move on. You know, we can revisit it in the future. Along that line of thinking, I've moved on to the G major scale now. And for those of you who are, you know, learning a little bit about music already, you may already know that the G major scale is very similar to the C scale in terms of, you know, number of white keys. It actually only adds one black key, which is this F sharp. Really all you're doing is it's the same pattern, finger pattern, in terms of where you cross over at. It's exactly the same. So the only thing you have to do is start on the G, obviously, and then hit that black note on your seventh note. Physically, for me, that wasn't that hard to do, because you're talking like, what, like a half inch further that your hand's got to go. Difficult for me actually was the visual part, because I got so used to, when I was targeting that C all the time, I got so used to looking at that and having that be my focal point, that when you shift up to the G, it was, my brain's like, whoa, hold on, you're crossing over, you're not supposed to land on the G, on a C with your thumb, what's up with that? And I would get tripped up. So it was actually more of like the visual aspect of training my brain to play the scale correctly, compared to the physical aspect, because I've been practicing that pattern so much with the C scale that even like that what I just did there, adding the double octave, really wasn't that hard. Now in terms of how did I practice that scale, it was exactly the same as I practiced the C scale. And I'm not really going to go into that or show you guys every variation, you know, all those things that I talked about in the last video, for that exact reason. I talked about them in the last video, and this is like this is a progression here. You know, we're learning here, and just like any subject in life, when you learn something, you create a foundation, you build upon it. And so I can't talk about everything I talk about in every video in, you know, the following video. Otherwise, this will be like an exponential growth of video lengths here. So that, I mean, that's really all I'm going to say about the G scale. You know, all these exercises for the C scale, repeated them all for the G scale. Feeling pretty good with that. Going forward, I think I'm not sure what the next scale I'm going to learn is. I can tell you it's going to be another one that follows that same pattern. You know, I don't think I was just messing around here. I don't think it's D, because oh yeah, it is, because there you go. You see that? See, that's exactly what I'm saying, guys. Believe it or not, that was the first time I ever attempted to play a D scale, and I just played it. Super easy. I'll bet you I could do it with 2 hands. I'm gonna try it. The fingerings were all wrong with this hand, but the point of this is that a lot of these scales, once you get that pattern under your hand, you actually got the scale. That was one of the things that I love about bass, is that as soon as you know a pattern, you can move it anywhere on the neck and you got it. And I always thought that on piano it was different. Every scale was different, but it's actually not. I know for a fact that not every scale is like that, but clearly at least 3 of them are. Now that I do have that pattern, I think I can probably, you know, learn more scales more quickly, at least with the ones that have that pattern. So that's where we're at with regards to that. Next, I've got this arpeggio exercise that I've been delving into a bit, and you know, an arpeggio is something relatively straightforward. If you guys don't know what it is, maybe watch some videos on it, but if you do already know, it's just 3 notes. It's a broken triad. You're just taking the notes of a major chord, or if you want to think of it a different way, you're just taking the root, the third, and the fifth of you know, that particular key and playing them separately. So there's actually a lot that I learned from this exercise. First question I had when I was about to start working on it was, what finger goes where? And what I found out is that, at least for the right hand, it's pretty much, there's really only one possible way you can do it because of the shape of your hand. 1, 2, 3, 5 makes the most sense. Nothing else is like comfortable in the least bit to try and do. So for that hand, 1, 2, 3, 5 is the way to do it. For the left hand, it's a little bit less set in stone. A popular fingering seems to be 5, 3, 2, 1. But I actually found, at least for my hand, 5, 4, 2, 1 is way more comfortable for me. So I've chosen to go with that and just stick with it. One of the things that I'm learning here is there are certain things where there's a widely accepted correct method. An example being the major scale. Everybody crosses at the same point because it just works. And same thing with like that arpeggio in that hand. Everybody does that fingering because it works. But for this hand, you know, there's a little more leeway, and going forward, you know, this is kind of beyond the scope of this video. But real quick, when you start playing triads and chords, it all has to do with, you know, how big your hand is, what chord you're playing next. So there's perhaps guidelines you can follow, but that's exactly what they are. There's guidelines, and I think the most important thing is consistency. As long as you pick something and stick with it, I think you're going to be okay. So for that, for what I have chose to stick with is 5, 4, 2, 1 for the arpeggio fingerings. Now, what have I actually been playing besides what I just showed you? Well, I started with that, just starting it very, very slowly, one hand at a time. You guys know the drill. Worked my way up. Once I was done with that in both hands, I created this little exercise for myself. You guys know that's a big thing. I think it's very useful to come up with exercises on your own. So what I've been doing is I've got this little exercise, and let me just show you first, and then I'll explain it. Right? And it just goes all the way up until you get to the C, and then you come back down. But what you're actually doing is, all you're doing is you're taking the arpeggio shape and you're playing it as many times in a row as you want. I started out with 4 times in a row, then I went to 2 times in a row, and then just 1 time in a row. But you pick however many times you're doing it, and on the last one, on the way down, instead of going back to the root, you go to the next note in sequence, the next white key. In this case, it's a D, and then you do the same thing again. Now the last time, oh, a little mistake there, but you guys get the idea. And I just go all the way up and all the way back down, and there's some theory involved with this, which I'm not going to discuss in this video. You know, like that's a major, that's a minor, but that's well beyond the scope of this video. So I practiced that going up and down, and once I was comfortable with that in both hands, then I came up with this exercise which adds some hand independence practice. What I'm doing is, let's say I'm playing the arpeggio with my right hand. What I'm doing is I'm just holding the root of the arpeggio with the other hand. We're in C, D, E, and so on. And what you're doing with this hand is, you know, eventually as you get all the way up, you're just playing the C major scale shape that we've been practicing in this hand. It does have you doing different things. There's a lot of motion going on in the right hand. Not a lot of motion going on in this hand, but it gets tricky, especially when you get to like the G, because you got to cross, go back down. So that's like the hard part, because you're playing that major scale shape with this hand, or vice versa, if you're doing it the other way around. Right? So the idea is that, the idea behind that is obviously we're just doing two different things at once. And that's really what I've been doing with this arpeggio exercise. I haven't done anything beyond that. Moving forward, I want to do like an ascending exercise, like something like this. I used to play this on trumpet. Something like that. As you can see, I was like, I'm not sure what the correct fingering for that is, if there is one. And also, being able to do that with both hands. I don't know if I could do it. I guess I kind of can, but I have a theory that when I try to start moving up, it's going to get a little sketchy. That's where I'm at, guys. I know I'm going blazing fast here, but it's just a lot of stuff, and I'm trying to not, again, these aren't supposed to be lessons, but I'm just trying to show you what I've been doing and how I think it's helpful, and you know, hopefully it's helpful to you guys. If so, please give this a thumbs up. Please consider subscribing to my channel if you're not already subscribed. Leave a comment if you got any questions, if you got an idea how these videos could be better, more helpful to you guys. Don't be afraid to give me some constructive criticism in the comment section. So, that's all I got for you guys this video. Stay tuned for part 2 of episode 1. I'm going to show you some of the chord related things that I've been working on. And I think you guys are going to enjoy that because it's a lot more musical. Probably going to be more fun to watch than these first 2 videos. Alright guys, see you next time.